A unique path to callous-unemotional traits for children who are temperamentally fearless and unconcerned about transgressions. A longitudinal study of typically developing children from age 2 to 12. The article I selected is a longitudinal research wherein observations of toddler to adolescent children are evaluated to determine if there are precursors that indicate the development of callous-unemotional traits. The hypothesis states the expectation that children with low fearfulness and low concern about transgression, or low guilt and low empathy, will show a higher level of CU traits in adolescence. This longitudinal quantitative study followed 102 7-month-old toddlers for 12 years using observational research in a lab setting. The research results were then aggregated into a guilt empathy score. The results confirmed that low guilt was a predictor of CU traits as stated by the hypothesis. However, low empathy did not yield a significant score. I gave the introduction to this research a good quality rating. I feel all the necessary information is present to introduce the study, but I had to skim the entire document before I found a clear description of their intended goals and hypothesis. The theoretical frame of this article is primarily based on theorist Paul J. Frick's research of the callous-unemotional traits theory. The literature review included many other researchers, but Frick's contribution to the theory was quoted most often. CU is a developmental theory. It incorporates longitudinal research that observes behavior changes in the fearlessness of children over many years. It examines the etiology of CU traits by observing developing behaviors as well as neurological changes in children from toddler age to adolescence. It proposes that certain neural mechanisms and genetic heredity are closely related to how children develop certain apathetic and antisocial traits. I gave the methodology section of this article a high-quality rating. The participants were not randomly selected, but recruited from the community. Parents who volunteered their children for the research were scored based on level of education and family income. The researchers were very careful to include all of the important aspects of their process. The research included psychometrics using established methods for testing the reliability and validity of their measuring tools. These instruments included principal component analysis, Cronbach's alpha, and calculated an inter-rater reliability with most of the kappa scores over 0.61. Based on the researchers' thorough analysis and commitment to established statistical methods, I would rate the results section of the study as high quality. The results attempted to confirm the hypothesis of two research questions. First, the expectation that young children's low fearfulness and low concern about transgression would be linked to higher levels of CU traits in adolescence. Second, the prediction that fearfulness would provide an observable path between children's concern about transgressions and future CU traits. The results concluded that children who were relatively fearless, one standard deviation below the fearfulness mean, and those who were average at the mean of fearfulness, variation in the guilt was significantly associated with CU traits, so that children who expressed less guilt scored higher on CU traits. See the journal form of the statistical analysis below. By contrast, for children who were relatively fearful, one standard deviation above the fearfulness mean, variation in guilt was unrelated to CU traits. I also rated the discussion section of this article as high quality. The discussion indicates that research conducted makes a useful contribution to the study of the origin of CU traits. The use of robust, carefully scripted data that spanned a 12-year period provided a measurable path to follow during the observations. Also, the observation of both guilt and empathy in predicting CU traits was unique to this study. The results support what previous studies have found. Prior research emphasized specific age groups and were based on theoretical propositions concerning CU traits' origins. This study proved many of those propositions to be true with measurable data. Limitations of this study were also discussed. The study may have proven that predictors of CU traits are observable and measurable, but it does not explain why the phenomena exist and what are the causes of fearlessness and lack of empathy? I would give this article an overall rating of high quality. All of the sections except for the introduction had a high quality rating. The introduction did contain all the necessary elements typical for that section, but as a reader, the overall goals and research questions were not as obvious as I would have preferred. The methodology section was scripted well enough that future researchers could repeat the experiment and make a measurable comparison. The results section was also well documented with precision and transferability in mind, giving clear guidance for the analytical process. Discussion thoroughly addressed concerns about limitations and contributions the research added to the study of CU traits. As an instructor of juniors and seniors in high school technology classes, I have witnessed CU traits in many adolescents. Disregard and apathy concerning the consequences for transgressions has always surprised me. In the past, I may have pointed to poor parenting practices or the lack of discipline in the home. Now I see there are individuals born with predispositions that affect their perception and inevitably their behavior. This clarity does not justify the transgression, but may help in diagnosing a more appropriate solution to improve the individual's perception and hopefully reduce the presence of CU traits in their adult life. A few studies I can see as a result of this research include studies on psychopathic behaviors, the effects of guilt on social cognition, analyzing the psychology of bullying, the effects of CU traits on political leaders, and teaching morality. The citation for the research article is listed here. I thank you for taking the time to explore CU traits and their effect on developmental behaviors.